Total levies for foreign tourists entering Bali reach 251.9 billion rupiah. And developers ignore the environment in Bali, warning for property investors in tourist areas. More on development in Bali. Stay tuned for details on these and other stories. Welcome to the latest news from Bali in Indonesia. This is October 14th, 2024, and my name is Bruce. Selamat siang. Okay, one of the things that started this year that, well, some people were really upset about, some people didn't really care. There were a lot of questions, both from people here in the tourism industry as well as tourists coming in, about the tourist tax or the tourist levy. And what do we have about that? Total levies for foreign tourists entering Bali reached 251.9 billion rupiah. The amount of tourist levy or foreign tourist levies, PWA, recorded to enter Bali reached 251.9 billion rupiah. If observed, foreign tourist visits to Bali, which will have reached more than 4 million, the amount of PWA is still far from the target. The reason is the implementation of the tourist levy, which is 150,000 per person, multiplied by 4 will get a figure of more than 600 billion. Head of the Bali Provincial Tourism Office, Pak Jakarta Bagus Pemayun, said that this is influenced by various factors, this discrepancy. First, we need to remap which foreign tourists are actually using tourist visas and which are exceptions. According to him, the data of 4 million foreign tourists is only in general who enter Bali. There are some exceptions that can't be charged the levy. For example, tourists who have kitas or kitap, student visas, those on diplomatic visas as well. He said we have to map it out again in the future because there are exceptions that are not subject to the levies, so we don't really know how much we're losing. In addition, he admitted that the first program had many obstacles at the beginning. For example, we know that, from the side of the collection system, payments, and so on. However, he said, we tried to resolve this. We're trying our best to make sure that everybody is paying. In the future, he hopes that the payment of the tourist levy can be completed before tourists enter Bali so that there are not many queues at the airport. Regarding the use of the funds from the tourist levy, he said that that would be managed by the regional government. He said he did not have authority over it. These funds go to the regional government. Our task here, he said, is to collect the money. And when this first started, there was a lot of talk about how this was going to be transparent, how the money was going to be used. And of course, there were changes in it. First, it was going to be used to make improvements in the infrastructure. It was going to be used to get rid of the garbage. It was going to be used to enhance cultural attractions. How it's being used? Still no word on that, apparently. If he doesn't know, who does know? But in the meantime, you are supposed to be paying for this. And I mentioned, I think last month that there were people that wanted, including the sitting governor, and elections are just around the corner, he wanted some penalties for people that were not paying. Well, that has gone nowhere so far. So another one of those things that shows, could we say a lack of implementation? Some less than ideal planning? I don't know. I guess there's a couple different ways we could put it. But they're still trying to figure out how much money they're losing by not having everybody pay. And what about construction and development in Bali? Right, this is an ongoing issue. Developers ignore the environment in Bali. Warning for property investors in tourist areas. Founder of Property Excellence and Advisory, Rak Suherman, responded to the rampant property development that does not meet environmental standards and violates regulations. He asked investors to comply with regulations when building a project, especially if the project is located in a tourist area that has high cultural value, such as in Bali. There are many heritages in Bali that must be preserved, so we must be careful when developing a building. He said in various neighboring countries, such as Australia and ASEAN countries, there are special provisions when investors develop projects on the coastline. Therefore, he said, Bali must implement the same thing because it has a high cultural value. According to him, the government must present clear and firm regulations. Meanwhile, investors must comply with existing regulations. This means that synergy and communication are needed so that there is a best solution. In Bali, it is known that several cultural tourism areas are now being used as commercial areas. For example, in South Kuta, cliff cutting was carried out for a commercial project that has the potential to damage marine life because the material is piling up in the sea. But this project has received a recommendation from Bali Penida River Basin Office. However, there's been no permit from the Ministry of Public Works and Spatial Planning, which is PUPR. So the project implementer must continue to process permits. The Attorney General's office reportedly conducted an examination of a number of regional officials in the Pachatu and Jimbaran areas to ensure that there were not any violations of regulations. Pak Suherman said the government needs to simplify the rules so that investors have certainty in investing. If the bureaucracy is complicated, he said, it will affect the realization of investment. However, there was, I think it's called the OSS, they put that in for businesses in order to simplify things, but then it turned out that people were coming into areas and constructing villas and hotels without any of the local people knowing what was going on. And so that has become an issue, and well, that may be rolled back. There's going to be some changes according to an article I was talking about, I think, last week. In addition to being a favorite world tourist destination, Bali is still the main choice for investors and property developments to expand their business wings. Great, just what we need, more development here. It's no wonder that currently many large-scale developers are aggressively seizing business opportunities in the promising property sector of the island of the gods. And so construction continues, as I said, but infrastructure is still not there. We have the problems with traffic. We have the problems with trash, sewage. We've got over-tourism. We have some criminal activities going on now. A lot of drugs entering Bali. And certain people in the government continue to try to bring in more and more people when we are over-touristed in certain areas. And some people want to spread that out, right? That's the frequent thing that some people, like the Minister of Tourism, Pak Sandiaga Uno, said, spread it out over the whole island so that the whole island is infected with all these concrete structures that are being built. And here is one that the government is very proud of, and I haven't seen the completed project. The last time I went by up there, the Turiyapada Tower, it wasn't completed yet, but is this supposed to be attractive? I don't know. What do you think? So some people in the government, like Pak Sandiaga Uno and others, want to spread this out, and they're talking about making the whole island more equal in terms of income and spreading the tourists out so it's not so crazy like down in the south. But some people are saying, stop, maybe we shouldn't do that. And so let's see what is going on there. Talking about land conversion in Bali, Giri Prasta blames job creation law. Bali Deputy Gubernatorial Candidate number 2, Inyoman Giri Prasta, responded to the conversion of agricultural land on the island of the gods. He blamed the rules in the job creation law that allows construction of buildings with investment of only under 5 billion rupiah. This was stated by him during a public hearing on the theme of land conversion down at Udayana University just yesterday. Current land conversion is related to the job creation law. Those who are allowed to do business with a value of under 5 billion or less can immediately get a building permit, he said. Let alone agricultural land, even green belts are possible because the job creation law regulations make it possible. He said that it made it difficult for him to stem the massive development of commercial infrastructure. Even so, and he was a 2-term Badung regent, he said he would find a solution. One of the things he wants to do is pay farmers. Okay, I like that. In addition, he also promised fertilizer subsidies and exempted agricultural land taxes. We provide free fertilizer. We've already done this. This is what we need to do to convey the need to reduce the rate of land conversion. Bali gubernatorial candidate number 2, Koster, said one of the things that needs to be controlled is the construction of hotels, restaurants, and villas in the already densely populated areas. He promises to be more selective in issuing permits for commercial development projects, especially tourist accommodation. We must strictly control land conversion by controlling the construction of hotels, restaurants, and villas, he said. Koster also plans to designate Tabanan, Jembrana, Karangasem, and Bulaang as conservation areas. This is something new. He does not want the regencies in northern Bali to suffer the same fate as southern Bali. Yes. Over the last 5 years, I haven't always agreed with Koster. Of course, I'm a foreigner, so I have not a whole lot to say about that. But not wanting the rest of Bali to suffer the same fate as southern Bali, I agree with that. He said, our land should not be continuously eroded and threaten our food sovereignty. In addition to land conversion, Koster also promised to discipline foreign nationals who act up in Bali, including by issuing regulations related to foreigners who invest in the name of Balinese. According to head of research division of UDID, Professor E.Y. Suwarna, land productivity in Bali needs to be increased, including for vegetation or plant ecosystems. There's no such thing as unproductive land. All land is productive. At least it plays a role in increasing vegetation cover, he said. He also talked about land as considered unproductive. According to him, such land is also worthy of being cultivated to be productive. Even if it's not productive, we must protect it so that it is not diverted, because the function of our land in Bali, our forests are only 23%, including terrestrial forest. Aquatic forests are only 1%. Previously, the Indonesian Environmental Forum, WALI, in Bali, urged the government to immediately impose a moratorium on the construction of hotels and villas. We know that the massive development and conversion of agricultural lands has resulted in around 2,000 hectares of rice fields in Bali disappearing per year. WALI assessed that development moratorium policy should have been implemented long ago because there's already too much development in Bali. This is because many green spaces have been turned into buildings. And this is going to be talked about and talked about and talked about, and hopefully something will be done about it soon. How many hotels is enough? How many hotels are too much? The thing is, changes should be good for the population and not just for people coming in. Do people really want to turn Bali into a playground for tourists? What happens when Bali loses that magic that people always talk about when they come here? Bali is magical. Of course, I saw somebody in a TikTok video the other day talking about how magical Bali was. He was in Canggu interviewing people while some girls behind him were throwing up in the street. That's magical. And interesting, the incoming president, who will be president just shortly, in another week, I think? He says, let's stop using euphemisms. Poor is poor. Prabowo calls for end to government euphemisms. President-elect Prabowo Subianto has expressed distaste for euphemistic language in the government, saying leaders must dare to face the country's problems frankly and directly. He cited the term pre-prosperous being used in place of poor as a prime example. The former was more friendly, but masked the reality of the country's serious poverty situation, he said. Poor is poor. It doesn't sound good, but we as leaders must dare to look at it. We must dare to look at hardship and try to resolve it. He said this on Thursday. The Finance Ministry's Endowment Fund for Education, the LPDP, the country's largest state scholarship manager, has used the term to describe a scholarship program designated for the poor, called the Pre-Prosperous People Scholarship. Prabowo said the term aspiring middle class is similarly euphemistic. The World Bank defines the aspiring middle class as people that are free from poverty but have yet to achieve full economic security. Different multilateral institutions have different definitions for poor and middle class. In August, Statistics Indonesia, BPS, used the term as well when discussing the state of the country's middle class, aspiring middle class. Prabowo said they aspire, they hope to rise to the middle class. What does that mean if they aspire to become middle class? It means they're not in the middle class yet, right? It means they're poor. The country has also institutionalized such language in other areas. Some state-owned enterprises selling service to the public often refer to price hikes as price adjustments. Meanwhile, state-owned electricity company, PLN, and the Energy and Mineral Resources Ministry use the term tariff adjustment to describe a plan to lift subsidies on electricity. A study conducted by Ali Reza Hojati, and published by MacroThink Institute's International Journal of Linguistics, noted that euphemisms were often used to soften the impact of concepts with the potential to cause offense and social disapproval. Tempo.com wrote that euphemism was used extensively under Suharto's authoritarian new regime. And more on land. Now, increasing number of foreigners owning land in name of local people. Koster, take firm action. We'll make regulations. The candidate pair for governor and deputy governor of Bali, Koster, and Inyom and Giri Prasta, the dynamic duo, was asked to commit to not having any illegal smuggling related to development in Bali, which is actually owned by foreign nationals, but borrows the name of local residents. That's the nominee system. It's further acknowledged that the mushrooming of villas or businesses using the name of local residents is ongoing, and the dynamic duo are going to plan to create a nominee regulation. The gubernatorial candidate, Koster, said he will make regulations to organize and manage business actors in Bali and take firm action in tightening regulations and licenses. Regarding licensing, he said, no one should play around. If there are those who play around, there must be firm action by the authorities. Those who facilitate permits or those who allow building going on without permits, well, of course, it's detrimental to the Balinese community. He added that there must be strict regulations so that no foreigners do business that breaks the rules. He invited students from Udayana University to work together to organize Bali so as to leave a legacy for the next generation. He said, we'll work together with Udayana and other universities to map out a number of villas throughout Bali that are illegal or misused, built as houses, but used as villas. Because up until now, he said, there's no regulation. Former Governor Koster said, some foreigners build houses, buy land using Indonesian names. Others get married to local residents, get the land, and then divorce them. And when I got my kitab, first time I got it, people from immigration came, they checked around, they asked questions of my wife and me about our relationship and about my parents and her parents, and looked around, but we have pictures of kids, our kids, everywhere. So they were checking to make sure that our marriage was actually on the up and up. Koster emphasized that action must be taken. If left unchecked, it will threaten Bali. There is no other way. There must be firm action without discrimination. If not, Bali will continue to be eroded and we will be increasingly narrow. Bali and its people will be marginalized and our culture will be damaged. This must not be allowed, he said. He said he would create regulations governing the conversion of land owned by foreigners but using the name of local people. He said we must create regulations related to this conversion of land owned by people in the name of the Balinese people. And big news that's been going on for a couple of weeks now, and I mentioned it before. I mentioned it, I think, last week with the Pink Palace. Well, and I said there were two spa businesses in Badung area raided by Bali police criminal investigation directorate officers. The turnover of these two spas is no joke. At Flame Spa, it is around 180 million to 200 million per month, while at Pink Palace Bali Spa, it's around 1.1 to 3 billion per month. Now, there are so many articles on this, and the numbers differ. So for the Flame Spa, I read other numbers which were much, much higher, in the 1 to 3 billion rupiah income per month. But the actual money is not all that important for what we're talking about here. The two spa businesses in the Badung area, the Flame Spa and Pink Palace Spa, were raided by the officers. The two businesses with traditional massage permits were raided by the police because they were carrying out prostitution. From the two places, 11 suspects were arrested. These suspects each have their own roles, from owner, manager, receptionist. In addition to securing 11 suspects, from these two places, the police also secured a variety of evidence such as used and unused condoms, electronic devices, towels, cars, and others. The suspects and evidence are now being held at Bali Police for further investigation. Police spokesperson detailed that the 5 people who were named suspects at the Flame Spa, one of them was a well-known influencer in Indonesia. So that's 5 people from Flame. 6 people were named as suspects at Pink Palace. 2 owners of the Pink Palace are a married couple from Australia, and I saw a report on this on the Australian news last night online. At the Pink Palace during the raid, one of the people arrested was a minor under age 17 years old. And this is, of course, being played up a lot as well. Police spokesperson said both of these businesses have a traditional massage license, but inside there's a spa and prostitution. At Flame, the prices range from $1 million to $1.9 million. In this place, it's only a massage until orgasm. So a massage with a happy ending. Meanwhile, at the Pink Palace, the rates run from $1 million to $2.5 million. And in this place, a massage includes intercourse. The price is according to the treatment, according to the police spokesperson. Customers include foreigners and local people. Both businesses have been operating for at least a year. The existence of these two sex places was initially revealed after reports from the public. Before finally being raided by police, an investigation was first carried out. After it was confirmed that there was prostitution going on, a raid was immediately carried out. The therapists apparently are not going to be charged because the police say that they're actually victims. They're used as a tool to generate profit. Meanwhile, the suspects are people who run the business. And there's several other stories about this that I am not going to go through here, but I have links down below if you want to read about this, and there's more detail about both of the spas and how much money they're making and who is involved in the situation. Okay, and that is it for today. Thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Stay safe, and if you are visiting Bali, I hope you're having a great time. And if you live here, well, I hope you're also having a great time. I'll see you next time.